right. I'm being joined by a professor of law, a writer, and a lawyer, and the former chairman of the Nigerian Human Rights Commission, Professor Chidi Odinkalu, who is live for us virtually. Thank you so much, Prof, for joining us tonight on the program.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. Maybe before we let me extract some knowledge from you with respect to law. What does it mean when a defendant like Nnamdi Kanu says, I want to defend myself? What are the implications in law?
I don't know any law in Nigeria, so I can't help you, sir. I'm sorry.
You want us to withdraw your law certificates? You are now denying that you have knowledge of law.
Please feel free to withdraw it, because the fact of the matter is that the things that our courts do these days, I was not trained in them. And so I can't help you if it comes to Nigerian law.
All right.
And gladly, I teach international law, which is not made in Nigeria.
But what are the principles of law? Since your knowledge of law suddenly have just disappeared, Prof, I mean, seriously, what are the implications when a defendant says, I will now represent myself?
In the version of law that I was taught, the relationship between a lawyer and the client is a relationship of agent and principal, with the client being the principal and the lawyer being the agent. And if the principal withdraws the instruction, it is withdrawn. At which point the lawyer is obliged to cease representing the client. Now, in criminal proceedings, what then happens thereafter is between the judge and the accused person, because the person who is client is also accused person, I presume, in a trial. What happens thereafter is between the judge and the accused person. The judge is obliged to allow the accused person some time to reorganize their affairs. And the accused person obviously is entitled, the terms of the constitutional protection, by the way, or guarantee, if I remember correctly, entitle an accused person to represent themselves or through legal representatives of their own choice, as long as subject, of course, to the principle you know very well, which is that the lawyer has to be a person who has a natural right to travel in and out of Nigeria. And so the lawyer will not be a foreigner ordinarily. But other than that, an accused person is entitled to take these decisions. I presume that those are the prerogatives that Mr. Kanu has chosen to exercise.
So, I mean, you look at the trial and the agitation. What are your views about those who are asking? And I'm guessing that those who are asking for the freedom for Nnamdi Kanu are looking at it from the purview of the president granting clemency to about over 170 Nigerians who have been convicted.
First of all, there's a constitutional right to free expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of association, and those who are advocating for the release of Nnamdi Kanu through the mechanism of peaceful protest have a constitutional right to do that. I think that, by the way, if I may say so, what the police did 48 hours ago, on the 20th of this month, quite honestly, was terroristic. You cannot, kettle an entire city the way they did, just for the sake of precluding a protest. Now, if they had just marshaled the protesters along the road, people would have been able to do their business for the day with minimal interference. The idea of imprisoning an entire city just so that you terrorize an entire community sufficiently to preclude a protest is unlawful in my view. It's manifestly terroristic. And it's irresponsible. Now, shooting at people with tear gas canisters and reportedly live bullets, for what? What exactly were those people doing other than freeing Nnamdi Kanu now and raising their fists? I don't understand. And so the deliberate effort by law enforcement to inflame the protesters, in my view, is condemnable.
But the police says that it has a valid court order asking some of the protesters not to go in some, and that's the reason why they said they've arrested Showore earlier today, that the court has ordered that the protesters should limit their protests to certain areas of the city.
If that was what the police were about or were on about, then the charges filed against Aloy Ejimako and the other people whom they took to the magistrates court in Kuje do not reflect that, because they were charged with conspiracy and a lot of other things. They were not charged with disobeying a court order. All right? Now, and by the way, if the police would not be the people prosecuting for disobeying a court order, that will have to, because that will be contempt of court, that will have to go through the office of the Attorney General of the Federation. So what they're saying is manifestly indefensible. It's manifestly without basis in the facts. Go and look at the charges that they filed. Now, to go then and heist Showore from a court where he had gone to observe proceedings, as every citizen is entitled to do, is just a continuation of this unlawful way of proceeding about policing. And it's difficult. You see, the way they're picking up Showore and aggressing him makes it impossible not to have sympathy for his point of view that the Inspector General of Police is unlawful. You can't continue to aggress a citizen that repeatedly for nothing without in some way making your conduct subject to suspicion.
Let me take you to the appointment, the swearing in, the screening, and now the assumption of office of Professor Joash Amupitan, your colleague professor. What are your views about what now is going to be a new era for INEC?
Well, I've got to say I know Josh. We were in law school together. We were in the same law school class, and we were admitted to the Nigerian bar on the same day. He's what he said he is. Josh is a person of basic decency and integrity. And he's bright as hell. And my hope is that he will leave when eventually his tenure comes to an end. He will leave INEC with as the same Josh whom I've known for the past 37, 38 years. Now, INEC obviously is a different kettle of fish from running a university as a deputy vice chancellor. Although, universities are also very political places, by the way. So it's no mean skill, by the way, to be deputy vice chancellor administration in a university like the University of Jos, which is the last public position he took before he came to this position. I can tell you that. Now, having said that, INEC is also a territory ruled by a lot of principalities, all right? As is likely to find out. There are lots of interests in INEC. Pretty much every staff in INEC is accounted for. Every politicians own a lot of staff inside INEC, all right? And so before he says good morning, there is somebody reporting that to one politician who is interested, and he's going to discover very soon that it's a very lonely position. It's a thankless job. The people interested in what he eats for breakfast are too many. The people interested in what he thinks, how he prays if he does, or how he doesn't pray if he doesn't, are just too many. And those interests are going to be there. And it's not really about what he desires to do as much, which is very important, as much as what he precludes and whom he precludes from becoming the dominant principality within INEC. I think that's probably what he's going to find out. But as for the man himself, I know him reasonably well. He is better, a lot better in terms of integrity, let me say this, from the person whom he is replacing.
I mean, why do you think it's better? On what paradigm? What are the indices that brought you to that conclusion?
Josh will not administer an election like in Edo State in which there are 4 results. He will not do that. Now, Mahmoud Yakubu perfected the art of producing elections in which there are 4 results. One which he announces, one in which which is on IREV, another one issued to the party agents, and another one tendered in court. That's criminal. And I'm not going to spare him on national television. He brought elections in Nigeria into disrepute. He brought INEC into disrepute. And the new INEC chair will have to begin to address this. And let me just give you a bit of statistics, if you allow me for 1 minute. Okay? Now, let's go back to 2007, which was the nadir in electoral administration in Nigeria. In 2007, Morrissey Wood destroyed elections in Nigeria with President Obasanjo. All right? Now, how do we know that? Because 86.35% of the elections of the offices contested in 2007 ended up in court. They were decided not at the ballot box, but by the judges and the election tribunals. 86.35%. Now, Atahiru Jega had 10 months in which to run the 2011 elections. He brought down, and you see, politicians are very rational people. It's very simple. If a politician knows they have been well beat, the likelihood is they will not go, in most cases, not all cases, of course, but in most cases, they will accept their defeat and look for the next election. Now, in 2011, Atahiru Jega just simply addressed registration and reducing the number of elections that go to court as the test of credibility. With 10 months to deliver elections, he reduced the number of elections that ended up in court from 86.35% to 51%. That's over 35% reduction. It tells you he made massive progress. By 2015, President Jonathan decided he wasn't going to court. He wasn't going to go to court. He knew he was well beaten. And then, in 2015, 44% of the cases went to court. So, offices, what did you have? You had cycle upon cycle reduction between 2007, 2011, and 2015, with 2011 and 2015 supervised by Atahiru Jega. By 2019, with 4 years to supervise the elections, Mahmoud Yakubu increased the number of offices that ended up in court from under 45% to above 56% at 56.34%. Okay? And by 2023, the number of offices that ended up in court were 83%. Does that tell you something? Mahmoud Yakubu ruined INEC, and I cannot spare him. He destroyed elections in Nigeria. Josh has a job, which is nobody is expecting perfect elections, but begin to redress this in increments so that by 2007, we are not going to have over 80% of our elections going to court. That is the first step.
Do you fear for your friend that you know too well, the man that you say has integrity, that the system might fail him?
But I just said that here. Absolutely, I do. That's the point I made. I was trying to...
Could that rubbish the integrity and the profile or the reputation that he's made for himself?
Oh, absolutely, yes. That's exactly the point I was making, or trying to make. Admittedly, English is not my first language. Quite often, I don't say the things I want to say very clearly. But, when I said that INEC is a place dominated by multiple principalities, that's exactly the point I was trying to make. There is no senior politician from the presidency to state governors who does not have a plant in INEC.
So, I mean, if you put a call through to your classmate, Josh, as you know him, what would you be telling him? That, well, he's living amongst demons, or is treading in the most horrific moments of his career and his life. How does he deal with it?
Well, if I would tell him that I'm not a spectacularly churchious person, but I'll tell him that because he is the person, I'll be praying for him.
Is our election, can we rescue our election? Do you have hopes that 2027 election might be a free election for Nigerians?
Look, what would I say? We do have challenges, okay? We do have a lot of challenges, unquestionably so. But you see, I woke up this morning to see clips of Adams Oshiomhole campaigning against rigging, and I knew that something had happened on the road to Damascus. I don't know what it is. But if Adams Oshiomhole, who is responsible for the line that unless you have suffered rigging, you are not, I'm paraphrasing him, but unless you have been rigged out of office, you will not understand what it is to be a politician in Nigeria. If he is now against rigging, you never know. Damascus may be headed to Nigeria. Now, if I were if I were to make a suggestion to the INEC chair, the new INEC chairperson, quite clearly he cannot fix everything on in one day and with the time he's got at his disposal, and given the damage that Mahmoud Yakubu did to INEC, it seems to me he's got to decide what his priorities have got to be and how he's going to metricate progress, as in measure progress. And his first election, quite obviously, is Anambra State governorship election, and he's got less than, which is on the 8th. So he's got barely 2 weeks, 8th of next month. He's got barely 2 weeks to address that. And people are not going to be giving him any free passes. He's not going to have a break, it seems to me. And so people are going to see how he addresses Anambra State. And then use that as a basis going towards Ekiti State and then Osun State before, of course, we go to the 2027 elections. So it seems to me he's got a few laboratories, electoral laboratories in which to test his ideas, and on the basis of which Nigerians are going to have a foretaste of what 2027 is going to be like. So I'll start by suggesting that those laboratories in Anambra governorship, Ekiti governorship, and Osun governorship should provide us with a basis that is informed, on the basis of which to then begin to assess what will happen in 2027 elections.
Thank you so much indeed, Professor Chidi Odinkalu. But just, I'm curious though, what do you think about President Tinubu and those who are asking him to free Nnamdi Kanu?
Look, President Tinubu has pardoned everybody that can be pardoned. Cocaine importers, gun runners who have imported guns that have been used to kill our soldiers in Nigeria, human traffickers, the drug traffickers, all manner of traffickers. So basically traffickers in cocaine, traffickers in guns, traffickers in human beings, murderers who have spent less than, whose sentences have been confirmed by the Supreme Court, spent less than a few years in detention. Who has he not pardoned? And by the way, I woke up this morning again to see the story about repentant Boko Haram radicals or Boko Haram adherents, 300 and a bit, graduated from Gombe. I mean, look, we're a country in which everybody gets a second chance and everybody is entitled to the right. There's a constitutional right to repent. So who says that Nnamdi Kanu cannot be pardoned? Why not? Oh. And by the way, there is nothing that precludes the president from exercising a proactive prerogative of mercy. That when you read section 175 of the Constitution, isn't it? It does not say that a prerogative of mercy can only be exercised after a trial has been concluded. It can be exercised by the president at any time in the process. Without
the AGF office activating a null prosecutor on that matter?
No, absolutely, yes. Again, I have tremendous respect ordinarily for the current Attorney General of the Federation, but on this pardon thing, the conduct has, the paperwork says they have acted disreputably, and there's no other way to say it. It stinks what they have done. I'm on record, so I'm not going to pull punches on that. But what they have done on that list of 175 absolutely stinks.
Prof, what are those who have fears about the implication of releasing Nnamdi Kanu and the security of the Southeast region, considering those who have taken chances and advantage of Nnamdi Kanu's statements and the people who have lost their lives?
Look, I have had members of my family killed by this thing, but again, and don't forget, I chaired the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission at the instance of the Anambra State Governor on the situation in the Southeast, and I've spent a lot of the past 3 years getting acquainted with that situation across all the 5 states of the Southeast. Unquestionably, there is an IPOB issue, but the IPOB issue is overblown. Okay? If somebody tells you that Obosie in Anambra State is an IPOB issue, the person is a liar. IPOB cannot survive in Obosie. If anybody tells you that what happened with the Americans, 2 years ago in Ogbaro was an IPOB issue, that person does not know the terrain. It was not an IPOB issue. Other parts, in Osu, in Awidemili, in Osumogu, Anambra, Imo State borderlands, where there are IPOB issues, absolutely. In parts of Anambra State, Oga and Arondizogo, that's absolutely correct. But the idea that every issue in Southeast is an IPOB issue is ridiculous. It's absolutely not the case. Let me tell you this. The biggest single issue in security terms confronting the Southeast, in my estimation, based on the work I have done on this, is, I regret to disappoint you, not IPOB. It is one word, cults, financed by politicians. All right? Now, the cults are the biggest single issue, and you don't have a clue how terrible the problem of cults in the Southeast is at this particular time. Is there a crossover between that and the IPOB issue? Possibly. But cults financed by politicians, that is the biggest single security challenge confronting the Southeast at this time.
Dr. Chidi Odinkalu, a former chairman of the National Human Rights Commission, a professor of law, a writer, and a lawyer. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
A former lawyer. Thank you, sir.
Once a lawyer, I wouldn't agree with you. On that, you're factually incorrect. And I rule you out of order. You have to go out, de-enroll yourself. You enrolled as a lawyer. You have to come back and take a bow out in front of the Supreme Court to say, I now de-enroll myself from being a lawyer